Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the Crystal Palace's great hall, watching hundreds of alien nobles move through the room like living jewels. Their tall bodies caught the light from the massive windows, sending rainbow patterns across the polished floor. 6 months on this world, and he still felt like an outsider looking in. The Valerians were beautiful in a way that made humans seem small and plain. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like it was carved from precious stones right now. Most of them showed soft blue and green colors, which Jake had learned meant they were calm and happy. Their long faces held large eyes that seemed to see everything, and when they moved, they did it with a grace that reminded Jake of dancers. Jake pulled at his formal uniform, a mix of human military dress and Valerian ceremonial robes. The fabric felt heavy and strange against his skin. He had worn it for official events before, but today felt different. Today was the 6-month celebration of his marriage to Princess Zarathol, and the entire court had gathered to mark the occasion. He spotted his wife across the room, surrounded by a group of high-ranking nobles. Zarathol was stunning, even by Valerian standards. Her crystalline skin shifted between warm gold and soft amber, colors that Jake had come to associate with contentment. Her long silver hair was braided with tiny crystals that caught the light when she moved her head. She wore a flowing gown that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. When their eyes met across the crowded hall, she gave him a small smile. Jake felt some of his nervousness fade away. Despite everything, despite the political nature of their marriage, they had grown close over the past months. What started as a diplomatic arrangement had slowly become something real. Ambassador Lisa Carter appeared at his side, her gray hair perfectly styled, and her expression serious. She had been handling human relations with the Valerian Empire for 3 years, and Jake trusted her judgment more than anyone else on the diplomatic team. "How are you holding up, Captain?" she asked quietly. "Still feels strange," Jake admitted. 6 months ago, I was fighting pirates in the outer colonies. Now I'm married to an alien princess." Lisa nodded. "The things we do for peace. But you've done well, Jake. The reports from the Valerian court have been positive. They respect you." Jake hoped that was true. The marriage had been necessary to secure the peace treaty between humanity and the Valerian Empire. Humans needed access to the trade routes that the Valerians controlled. Without those routes, human colonies in the far systems would struggle to survive. The Valerians had demanded a marriage bond as proof of human commitment to the alliance. Jake had volunteered for the mission because he understood duty. He had spent 12 years in the human fleet, rising through the ranks until he made captain. When the diplomatic corps needed someone with military experience and cultural sensitivity, his name came up. The fact that he was unmarried and willing to make the sacrifice sealed the deal. The first few weeks had been difficult. Zarathol spoke perfect English, but her way of thinking was completely alien. Valerians valued directness and strength above almost everything else. They saw emotions as something to be displayed openly, not hidden. Jake, trained in military discipline and diplomatic restraint, had struggled to adapt, but slowly they had found common ground. Zarathol was intelligent and curious about human culture, asked endless questions about Earth, about human history, about why humans did things the way they did. In return, she taught Jake about Valerian traditions, their complex honor codes, and their deep connection to family and clan. The sound of crystal chimes filled the hall, and the crowd began to quiet down. King Vextar, Zarathel's father, stood at the front of the room on a raised platform. His massive form dominated the space, and his skin showed the deep purple that marked the royal bloodline. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the hall. "Friends, allies, family," the king began. "We gather today to celebrate the union that has brought our peoples together. 6 months ago, Captain Jake Morrison of Earth joined our family. Binding human and Valerian interests in the bonds of marriage, Jake felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him, straightened his shoulders and tried to look confident. Public speaking in front of aliens still made him nervous, but he had gotten better at it. The king continued, "This alliance has brought prosperity to both our peoples. Human technology has improved our mining operations. While Valerian trade routes have opened new opportunities for human expansion, but more than that, this marriage has shown that different species can find common ground, can build bridges across the void of space. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Jake noticed that several human dignitaries were present, including Admiral Grace Bennett and Dr. Helen Brooks. They looked pleased with how things were going. Zarathel moved through the crowd toward the platform where her father stood. Her skin had shifted to a brighter gold, which Jake knew meant she was feeling proud and happy. She climbed the steps with fluid grace and took her place beside the king. "My daughter has embraced this union with courage and wisdom," King Vextar said, placing a large hand on Zarathel's shoulder. "She has shown us all that love can grow between the most unlikely partners." Jake started walking toward the platform as he knew was expected. The crowd parted to let him through, and he could feel their attention like a physical weight. Of the Valerians showed curious purple and orange swirls on their skin, while others maintained the calm blue-green of formal occasions. As Jake reached the steps of the platform, Zarathel turned to face him. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. The light streaming through the crystal windows made her skin glow like molten gold. Her large eyes held warmth in what looked like genuine affection. Then something changed. Zarotho's skin suddenly flashed bright red, a color Jake had never seen on her before. Her eyes went wide and her expression shifted from warmth to something that looked like shock and anger combined. The change was so sudden and dramatic that Jake stopped climbing the steps. Before he could ask what was wrong, before he could even process what was happening, Zarathel stepped forward and slapped him across the face with all her considerable strength. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent hall like a gunshot. Jake's face burned where Zarathel had struck him. The pain was sharp and immediate, but the shock was worse. He touched his cheek and felt warmth. When he looked at his fingers, he saw blood. Her crystalline skin had cut him. The great hall remained completely silent. Hundreds of Valerians stood frozen, their skin colors shifting rapidly through shades Jake had never seen before. Some showed deep purple streaks of confusion, while others displayed angry red patches. The human delegation looked horrified. Zarathel stood on the platform above him, her own skin now a cold silver that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. Her large eyes stared down at Jake with an expression he could not read. There was anger there, but also something else. Pain, maybe. Or disappointment. King Vextar's massive form had gone completely still. His skin showed the deep black that Jake had learned meant serious trouble. The king's eyes moved between his daughter and Jake, and his voice, when he finally spoke, was carefully controlled. "The ceremony is ended," the king announced. "All guests will leave the hall immediately." The crowd began to move, but slowly, as if no one wanted to miss what might happen next. Jake could hear whispered conversations in the Valerian language, rapid exchanges that sounded urgent and worried. The human guests looked just as confused as he felt. Ambassador Lisa Carter pushed through the crowd toward Jake. Her face was pale, and her usual diplomatic calm had cracked. Dr. Helen Brooks followed close behind her, along with Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres, who kept his hand near his sidearm. "Jake, what happened?" Lisa demanded in a low voice. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Jake said, still touching his bleeding cheek. "I was walking up to the platform, just like we rehearsed. Then she just—" He looked up at Zarathel, but she had turned away from him. Her silver skin made her look like a statue carved from ice. She spoke quietly to her father in their own language, too fast for Jake to follow with his limited vocabulary. "We need to get you out of here," Ryan said. "This could turn ugly fast." But before they could move, King Vextar raised one massive hand. His voice boomed across the hall. "Captain Morrison will remain. All others will leave now." Lisa started to protest. "Your Majesty, as the human ambassador, I have the right to. You have no rights here." The king cut her off. "This is a family matter now. Leave." Jake watched his friends and colleagues file out of the hall with the rest of the guests. Lisa looked back at him with worry written across her face. Ryan's expression promised that he would be waiting just outside the doors. But Jake was alone now, standing at the bottom of the platform where his wife and her father waited. When the last guest had gone, and the great doors had closed with a deep boom, King Vextar finally looked down at Jake. The king's black skin. Color had not changed, which meant his anger had not cooled. "Explain," the king said simply. Jake spread his hands. "I don't understand what happened. Everything seemed normal, then Zarathel's skin went red, and she hit me. I don't know why." The king's eyes shifted to his daughter. "Oh," Zarathel spoke in. Their language again, her voice tight with emotion. Jake caught a few words he recognized, but not enough to understand the meaning. "My daughter says you are a liar," King Vextar translated. "She says you have betrayed the trust of this marriage and brought shame upon both our peoples." Jake felt his own anger starting to build. What betrayal? What shame? I've done everything asked of me. I've followed every custom, learned your language, respected your traditions. I've been a good husband. Zarathel finally looked at him directly. When she spoke, it was in English, but her accent was thicker than usual, the way it got when she was upset. "You think I am fool?" she said. "You think I do not see, do not know? But I know what your people do in the dark spaces. I know about the ships." "Ships," Jake repeated. "What ships?" But Zarathel had turned away again, her silver skin now showing streaks of deep blue that Jake thought might mean sadness. King Vextar studied Jake for a long moment, and his skin began to show hints of purple mixed with the black. "You truly do not know," the king said finally. It was not a question. "Know what?" Jake asked. "Please, tell me what's going on. I can't fix something if I don't understand what's wrong." King Vextar descended from the platform, his massive form moving. With surprising grace, up close, Jake was reminded of just how large and powerful the Valerians were. The king could crush him without effort if he chose to. "There are reports," the king said quietly. "Intelligence from our scouts in the outer systems. Your people are building a fleet, a large fleet. Ships of war, not trade." Jake felt his stomach drop. He knew nothing about any fleet, but he could see how it would look to the Valerians. After months of peace talks and marriage negotiations, discovering that humans were secretly building warships would seem like the worst kind of betrayal. "Don't know anything about that," Jake said. "I'm not military command anymore. I'm just a diplomat now," perhaps the king said. "But you understand how this appears. We make peace. We join our families. We open our trade routes. In return, your people prepare for war." Jake looked up at Zarathel, who was watching their conversation. Her skin had shifted to mostly blue now, which he thought meant she was sad rather than angry. That somehow made it worse. "Is that what you think?" Jake asked her. "That I married you just to spy on your people? That everything between us has been a lie?" Zarathel's skin flickered between blue and silver. "I do not know what to think," she said softly. "I believed you were honorable. I believed your people were honorable. But the reports, ... "What reports exactly?" Jake pressed. "Who told you about these ships?" King Vextar exchanged a look with his daughter. "Our intelligence networks have sources throughout this sector of space. The reports come from multiple locations. There can be no doubt." Jake ran his hands through his hair, thinking hard. He had been out of the military loop for months, focused entirely on his diplomatic mission. But he knew the people in charge of human fleet operations. They were good people, honorable people. They would not betray a peace treaty without good reason. "There has to be an explanation," Jake said. "Can I contact my superiors? Can I find out what's really happening?" "You may try," the king said. "But understand this, Captain Morrison. Din. Our culture, trust once broken, cannot easily be repaired. My daughter has given you a public challenge. You must answer it or face the consequences." "What kind of consequences?" King Vextar's skin went completely black again. The old ways a spouse who betrays their partner faces death. "The public strike was Zarathel's way of giving you a chance to defend your honor before the final judgment." Jake felt cold despite the warm air in the hall. "And if I can't prove my innocence, then this alliance dies with you," the king said simply. Jake sat in his private quarters, staring at the communication device in his hands. The cut on his cheek had been treated by the palace medical staff, but it still throbbed with each heartbeat. 3 hours had passed since the ceremony ended, and disaster, and he still could not make sense of what had happened. The room felt different now. What had once seemed like a comfortable home now felt like a prison. The beautiful crystal windows no longer showed him a view of an alien paradise. Instead, they reminded him that he was trapped on a world far from Earth, accused of crimes he knew nothing about. A soft chime announced a visitor. Jake looked up to see Dr. Helen Brooks entering his quarters, followed by Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres. Both looked worried and tired. "Jake, thank God you're all right," Helen said, sitting down across from him. "We've been trying to get permission to see you for hours." Ryan remained standing, his soldier instincts keeping him alert. The palace guards wouldn't let anyone in until now. "What did the king tell you?" Jake explained everything he had learned about the intelligence reports and the secret fleet. As he spoke, he watched his friends' faces grow more serious. When he finished, Helen was shaking her head. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "Why would Earth be building a secret fleet now? The treaty negotiations have been going perfectly. Trade is flowing, both sides are benefiting. Starting a war would hurt everyone." "Maybe it's not about starting a war," Ryan suggested. "Maybe it's about being ready for one. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are plenty of threats out there besides the Valerians." Jake activated his communication device and tried to contact Admiral Grace Bennett, his former commanding officer. The signal took several minutes to reach Earth and return. When the Admiral's face appeared on the screen, she looked surprised to see him. "Jake, what's wrong? You look terrible." "Admiral, I need to ask you something, and I need a straight answer," Jake said. "Is Earth building a secret fleet?" The Admiral's expression changed immediately. Her eyes grew hard, and Jake could see her thinking carefully about what to say. "That's classified information, Captain," she said finally. "Admiral, please. My marriage is falling apart. The Alliance is in danger. The Valerians think we're planning to attack them. There's something I should know." Admiral Bennett was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Jake, there are things happening that you don't know about. Things we couldn't tell you while you were on your diplomatic mission." "What things?" "I can't discuss them over an open channel." "But I'm sending Captain Amy Stone to your location. She'll be there in 2 days with full authorization to brief you on the situation." Ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. Helen and Ryan exchanged worried looks. "That didn't sound good," Ryan said. Jake tried calling other contacts in Earth's military command, but got similar responses. Everyone seemed to know something he didn't, but no one would talk about it over the communication channels. The secrecy only made the situation worse. Dr. Helen Brooks had spent months studying Valerian culture for her research. Jake asked her to help him understand what was really happening with Zarathal's behavior. "The public slap is definitely significant," Helen explained. "I've been reading through their historical records. In ancient Valerian culture, when a spouse suspected their partner of serious dishonor, they would issue what's called a challenge of truth. The public strike was the formal beginning of that challenge." "What does the challenge involve?" Jake asked. "The accused spouse has to prove their innocence through both words and actions. If they succeed, the marriage becomes stronger than before. If they fail, ... double quotes. If they fail, what?" "Execution," Ryan said grimly. "The king already told you that part." Jake felt sick. "So Zarathal isn't just angry with me. She's given me a chance to save my own life." "More than that," Helen continued. "According to what I've read, the challenge of truth is only used when the accusing spouse still believes in their partner's basic honor. If she thought you were truly evil, she would have just called for your death immediately." That gave Jake a small amount of hope. Zarathal still believed he might be innocent. But he needed proof, and he needed it quickly. Jake spent the next day trying to gather information from his Valerian contacts. Most of the nobles avoided him now, their skin colors showing fear and uncertainty whenever they saw him. But a few were willing to speak with him privately. Commander Dexler, a military officer who had worked with Jake on security arrangements, agreed to meet him in the palace gardens. The Valerian's skin showed the deep green of serious concern. "Reports came from multiple sources," Dexler explained quietly. "Our scouts in the outer rim sectors have observed large numbers of human ships gathering in hidden locations. Construction facilities that were not there 6 months ago. It appears to be a major military buildup. Did the report say what kind of ships? Heavy cruisers, mostly? Ships built for long-range combat, not exploration or trade. The kind of vessels you would use to attack another star system. Jake thought about this information. Heavy cruisers were expensive and took years to build. If Earth was constructing them in secret, the project would have started long before the peace negotiations with the Valerians began. Were there any other details? Anything about why the ships were being built? Dexler's skin shifted to include some purple streaks, which Jake had learned meant uncertainty. Some of our intelligence officers believed the fleet was aimed at us. Others thought it might be intended for a different target. But with no official explanation from your government, we assumed the worst. That evening, Jake tried one more. Time to contact Zarathel directly. He found her in the royal gardens, sitting beside a fountain that sang with crystalline music. Her skin was the pale silver it had been since the ceremony, but now it showed streaks of blue that Jake thought might be sadness. "Will you talk to me?" Jake asked, approaching carefully. Zarathel looked up at him. Her large eyes held pain that made Jake's chest ache. "I do not know what to say," she admitted. "For months, I believed I was learning to love you. I thought you were honest, honorable. Then the reports came, and I realized how little I truly knew." "The reports might be wrong," Jake said, "or they might not mean what everyone thinks they mean." "Then explain them to me," Zarathel challenged. "Make me understand why your people build war fleets in secret while speaking of peace." Atch. Down beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Someone is coming from Earth who can give me answers." "If you are innocent," she said softly, "then I have wronged you terribly. The public challenge was necessary by our laws, but it has hurt you." "If I'm innocent?" Jake repeated. "Do you really think I could lie to you for 6 months? Do you think everything between us has been fake?" Zarathel turned to look at him directly. "I hope not," she whispered, "because if it has been, then I am a fool, and our peoples will suffer for my foolishness." A messenger arrived the next morning with news that Captain Amy Stone had arrived ahead of schedule and was requesting an immediate meeting with Jake. As he prepared to learn the truth about the secret fleet, Jake realized that his life, his marriage, and the peace between two civilizations all depended on what Amy had come to tell him. Captain Amy Stone looked older than Jake remembered. Her brown hair showed streaks of gray that had not been there a year ago, and her eyes held a weariness that spoke of sleepless nights and difficult decisions. She sat across from Jake in his private quarters, a sealed datapad in her hands, and an expression that made his stomach tighten with worry. "Jake, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels," Amy began. "The information has been kept secret from everyone, except the top military commanders and a few key scientists. Even most of the human colonies don't know." Jake leaned forward. "Amy, just tell me, is Earth building a secret fleet to attack the Valerians?" "No," Amy said firmly. "Hey, but we are building a fleet, a big one, and the reason is going to change everything." Activated the datapad, and a holographic display appeared above the table. The image showed a map of known space, with human and Valerian territories marked in different colors. But there were other areas marked in black regions that Jake did not recognize. 3 years ago, our deep space monitoring station started picking up strange signals from beyond the galactic rim, Amy explained. "At first, we thought they were natural phenomena. Pulsars, maybe, or black hole emissions. But as we studied them more closely, we realized they were artificial." Jake studied the display. The black areas seemed to be moving slowly toward the center of the galaxy, toward human and Valerian space. "The signals were coming from machines," Amy continued. "Massive constructs, each one the size of a small moon. Call them harvesters. They move from system to system, stripping every planet of resources and destroying all organic life they find." Jake felt cold. "How many of them are there?" "We don't know exactly. Our best estimates suggest hundreds, maybe thousands. They've already consumed 3 entire star systems in the outer rim. Every planet in those systems is now a dead rock. Amy touched the datapad, and the display zoomed in on one of the black areas. Jake could see the remains of what had once been a solar system. The planets were still there, but they looked wrong. Their surfaces were gray and lifeless, covered with strange geometric patterns. The machines are controlled by something we're calling the hegemony, Amy said. We think it's an artificial intelligence, but one that's far more advanced than anything we've ever encountered. It seems to have one goal: the complete elimination of all biological life in the galaxy. Jake stared at the images. How long do we have? Our scientists estimate the hegemony will reach the outer human colonies in about 5 years. They'll be in Valerian space around the same time. Neither of our civilizations has the technology to stop them alone, so the fleet is humanity's attempt to build a force that can fight back, Amy finished. We've been working on new weapons, new ship designs, new strategies, but it's not enough. We need allies. We need the Valerians. Jake understood now why the fleet had been kept secret. The news would cause panic across human space. Colonies would be abandoned, trade would collapse, and the fragile peace with the Valerians might shatter under the pressure. Why wasn't I told? Jake asked. I could have explained this to the Valerians months ago. Amy's expression grew even more serious. Because the situation is worse than I've told you. The hegemony doesn't just destroy civilizations, it learns. From them, every species it encounters makes it stronger and smarter. If word of the threat spreads too quickly, it could cause chaos that makes us easier targets. She touched the datapad again, and new images appeared. These showed battles between the harvesters and unknown alien ships. The alien vessels, no matter how advanced they seemed, were quickly overwhelmed and destroyed. We found evidence of at least 12 other civilizations that tried to fight the hegemony, Amy said. All of them failed. The machines adapt to every weapon, every strategy. They turn the defenders' own technology against them. Jake felt overwhelmed by the scale of the threat. What makes you think humans and Valerians can do better? Because we're not fighting alone, Amy said. We've been in secret contact with other species that have detected the hegemony's approach. There's a coalition forming, Jake. Species that have never worked together before are joining forces. But it all depends on keeping the alliance between humans and Valerians strong. Jake understood the weight of his situation now. His marriage to Zarathal was not just about trade routes or diplomatic relations. It was about the survival of both species. I need to tell her, Jake said. I need to tell Zarathal and the king. They have to know. Amy nodded. That's why I'm here. I have authorization from the highest levels to share this information with the Valerian leadership. But Jake, this is dangerous. If the Valerians panic, if they decide to abandon their worlds and run, it could trigger a galaxy-wide collapse. They won't run, Jake said with certainty. Valerians don't abandon their territory. They'll fight. I hope you're right, Amy said. She handed him another datapad. This contains everything we know about the hegemony, including our defense, plans, and the weapons we're developing. But there's something else you need to know. Jake took the datapad, dreading what else Amy might tell him. The hegemony has been sending scouts ahead of the main force, Amy explained. Small probes that gather intelligence about target civilizations. We think some of them have already reached this sector of space. You mean they might already know about us? It's possible. The probes are almost impossible to detect, and they're designed to blend in with normal space traffic. They could have been watching human and Valerian activities for months. Jake thought about the implications. If the hegemony already knew about the alliance between humans and Valerians, they might accelerate their attack. Every day of delay could be fatal. There's one more thing, Amy said quietly. The reason I came here instead of just sending a message. We've detected unusual energy readings in this system, readings that match the signature of hegemony probes. Jake felt his blood turn to ice. Here in the Valerian home system? We think so. The readings are faint, but they're there. Jake, the enemy might already be watching us. Jake stood up and walked to the crystal window. The alien city spread. Out below him, beautiful and peaceful. Thousands of Valerians went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization might be in danger. How do I tell them? Jake asked. How do I explain that everything they know, Everything they've built could be destroyed in 5 years. Amy joined him at the window. You tell them the truth. You tell them that humanity wants to stand with them, not against them. You tell them that together we might have a chance. Jake looked at the datapad in his hands. The weight of 2 civilizations' futures pressed down on him. His marriage to Zarathal had started as a political arrangement, but now it might be the key to saving both species from extinction. I need to see the king, Jake said. And I need to see my wife. If we're going to survive this, we need to trust each other completely. Amy nodded. I'll arrange the meeting. But Jake, be careful how you present this. The wrong words could cause a panic that destroys us faster than any machine army. As Jake prepared to face his wife and her father with the truth about humanity's secret fleet, he realized that the slap in the palace had been the least of his problems. The real challenge was just beginning. Jake stood before the assembled Valerian court, his heart pounding as hundreds of crystalline faces stared down at him. The great hall buzzed with whispered conversations, and the skin colors of the nobles shifted constantly between curious purples and worried oranges. King Vextar sat on his crystal throne, his massive form radiating the deep black of serious judgment. Beside him, Zarotha watched Jake with silver skin that had not changed color since the day she had slapped him. Captain Amy Stone stood next to Jake, her military uniform crisp and her expression serious. She carried a data case that contained the most classified information in human space. Ambassador Lisa Carter and Dr. Helen Brooks sat with the human delegation, their faces showing the strain of the past few days. Jake had requested a formal honor challenge, an ancient Valerian ritual, where disputes were settled through combat and truth-telling. It was his right as an accused spouse, and his last chance to save both his marriage and the alliance between their peoples. Honored King, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall, I stand before you to answer the charges against me. I am accused of betraying the trust of this marriage and preparing war against the Valerian people. I say these charges are false, and I request the right to prove my innocence. King Vextar's skin shifted slightly, showing streaks of purple mixed with the black. You may speak, Captain Morrison, but know that lies will be punished with death. Jake looked up at Zarathal. Her large eyes met his, and for a moment he saw a flicker of something that might have been hope. He took a deep breath and began, Your Majesty, it is true that Earth has been building a fleet in secret. A large fleet of warships hidden in the outer systems, but these ships are not intended to attack the Valerian Empire. They're meant to defend both our peoples against a threat so terrible that speaking of it too soon could have caused panic across the galaxy. The whispers in the hall grew louder. Several nobles showed flashes of red on their skin, the color of anger and suspicion. King Vextar raised one massive hand for silence. Explain this threat, the king commanded. Jake nodded to Amy, who activated her data case. The holographic display that appeared above the center of the hall showed the map of known space, with the black areas marking the hegemony's advance. 3 years ago, our scientists detected these signals from beyond the galactic rim, Jake explained. What we found changed everything we thought we knew about the universe. The display zoomed in to show images of the harvesters, the massive machine constructs that stripped worlds bare of all life. Gasps echoed through the hall as the Valerian nobles saw the dead planets, their surfaces covered with geometric patterns, where cities and forests had once grown. We call them the hegemony, Jake continued. They are machines controlled by an artificial intelligence that has one goal, the complete destruction of all biological life in the galaxy. They have already consumed entire star systems. Every living thing in those systems is dead. Zarothel's skin flickered from silver to a pale blue. Jake could see that she was beginning to understand the scope of the threat. Amy stepped forward, began explaining the technical details. She showed battle recordings from the 12 civilizations that had tried to fight the hegemony alone. The assembled Valerians watched in growing horror as advanced alien fleets were systematically destroyed by the machine forces. The enemy learns. From every battle, Amy said. Every weapon used against them makes them stronger. Every strategy attempted teaches them how to counter similar tactics. No single species has been able to stand against them. General Mordax, the king's military advisor, stood up from his seat among the nobles. His skin showed the deep red of warrior's anger. "If these machines are so powerful," the general demanded, "what makes you think your human fleet can succeed where others have failed?" Jake had expected this question, because we're not fighting alone. We've made contact with other species that have detected the hegemony's approach. There's a coalition forming, General. Dozens of civilizations working together, sharing technology and strategies. He paused and looked directly at Zarathal. But the coalition only works if the major powers join together. Humanity and the Valerian Empire are two of the strongest military forces in this part of the galaxy. If we fight separately, we will fail separately. King Vextar leaned forward on his throne. "You are saying that this marriage, this alliance, is necessary for survival?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake said firmly. "The marriage bond between Princess Zarathal and myself represents the trust between our peoples. Without that trust, without that unity, both our civilizations will fall to the machines." The king turned to his daughter. "What say you, Zarathal? Do you believe his words?" Zarathal stood up slowly. Her skin had been cycling through different colors as Jake spoke, showing the internal struggle she was fighting. Now it settled into a warm amber that Jake had not seen since before the ceremony. "Father," she said, her voice strong and clear, "I have watched this man for 6 months. I have seen his honor in small things and large ones. When he speaks of duty and sacrifice, his skin tells no lies." She looked down at Jake, and her amber skin brightened. "I struck him publicly because our laws demanded it when I suspected betrayal. But I see now that he has been carrying a terrible burden, protecting both our peoples by keeping this secret until the right moment." Jake felt relief flood through him. But he knew the challenge was not over yet. General Mortex spoke again. "Even if we believe this threat is real, why should we trust human leadership? Why not take our fleets and fight independently?" Dr. Helen Brooks stood up from the human delegation. "General, may I show you something?" At the king's nod, Helen activated her own datapad. New images appeared in the holographic display, showing detailed analyses of the hegemony's attack patterns. "Studied every battle we could find," Helen explained. "The hegemony always attacks the strongest targets first. They eliminate the species most capable of resistance, then mop up the weaker ones. If the Valerian Empire and humanity fight separately, you will face the full force of their assault alone." She changed the display to show computer simulations. "But if we combine our fleets, coordinate our defenses, and share our technology, we can create something the hegemony has never faced before, a unified resistance that gets stronger as more species join it." Commander Dexler, who had spoken privately with Jake days earlier, stood up from among the military officers. "Your Majesty, I have reviewed the human data. Their analysis matches our own observations. The threat is real, and it is coming whether we are ready or not." King Vextar was quiet for a long time. His skin cycled through various colors as he considered everything he had heard. Finally, he spoke. "Captain Morrison, you have answered the charges against you. You have shown that what appeared to be betrayal was actually the highest form of loyalty, kept a dangerous secret to protect both our peoples from panic, while working to build the alliance that might save us all." The king stood up, his massive form towering over the assembly. "I declare the honor challenge satisfied. Captain Morrison is proven innocent of all charges." Zarothel's skin burst into brilliant gold, the color of joy and relief. She hurried down from the platform and threw her arms around Jake, her crystalline skin warm against his cheek. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I should have trusted you." "You did what your culture demanded," Jake replied, holding her close. "You gave me the chance to prove myself. That's what love looks like in your people's way." King Vextar's voice boomed across the hall. "Let it be known throughout the Empire that the Valerian people will stand with humanity against this threat. We will combine our fleets, share our knowledge, and fight as one people against the machines that would destroy all life." He assembled. Nobles erupted in voices raised in agreement, their skin colors shifting to the deep blue of determination and courage. Jake held his wife and felt hope for the first time in days. The real war was about to begin, but they would face it together. Jake stood on the observation deck of the massive starship, watching the combined human and Valerian fleet spread out before him like a constellation of hope. 3 months had passed since the honor challenge, and the transformation had been incredible. Where once there had been suspicion and secrecy, now there was unity and purpose. The flagship they stood on was itself a symbol of the new alliance. The ship had been designed by both human and Valerian engineers, combining the best technology from both civilizations. Its hull gleamed with the crystalline armor that the Valerians had perfected, while its weapons systems used human energy-focusing technology that increased their power threefold. Zarathal stood beside him, her skin showing the warm gold of happiness. Mixed with the silver of determination, she wore a new uniform that blended human military design with Valerian ceremonial elements, marking her role as co-commander of the joint fleet. The scouts report that the advanced elements of the hegemony will reach the outer colonies in 18 months, she said, reading from a datapad. Earlier than we expected? Jake nodded. But we're ready for them. Look at what we've built. The fleet that surrounded them would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Human heavy cruisers flew in formation with Valerian crystal ships, their crews working together as if they had trained for years instead of months. In the distance, Jake could see vessels from 6 other species that had joined the coalition, each bringing their own unique strengths to the alliance. Dr. Helen Brooks approached them, her face showing excitement despite the serious situation. She had been working with Valerian scientists to study the enemy technology, and her research had led to several breakthrough discoveries. Jake, Zarathal, you need to see this, Helen said, activating a holographic display. We've figured out why the hegemony has been so successful against other civilizations. The display showed complex diagrams of machine technology. Jake could not understand most of it, but he could see that Helen was excited about something important. The hegemony machines are designed to adapt to individual species, Helen explained. They study one type of technology, one way of thinking, one set of tactics. But they've never faced a truly mixed alliance before. Our combined technologies are creating interference patterns that their adaptive systems can't process properly. Zarothel's skin brightened with interest. You mean our diversity is actually a weapon against them? Exactly, Helen said. Human plasma weapons fire at the same time as Valerian crystal beams. The interaction creates energy signatures that the machines can't predict or counter. And when we add in the sonic weapons from the Althari species, or the gravity manipulators from the Zentok, the combinations become almost infinite. Jake felt a surge of hope. So we actually have a chance. More than a chance, Helen said, if our models are correct. A properly coordinated attack by the full alliance could overwhelm the hegemony's adaptive capabilities completely. Commander Nick Palmer, Jake's former first officer, joined their group. He had been leading the integration of human and Valerian tactical systems, and his reports had been consistently positive. The crew integration is ahead of schedule, Nick reported. Human and Valerian officers are working together like they've been partners for years. The language barriers are almost gone, and the tactical coordination is getting better every day. Jake was proud of how quickly the two militaries had learned to work together. It helped that both cultures valued honor and duty, even if they expressed those values differently. Admiral Grace Bennett's voice came over the ship's communication system. All senior officers to the command center. We've received new intelligence from the forward scouts. Jake and Zarothel made their way to the command center, where they found Admiral Bennett studying a large tactical display. The Admiral looked tired but determined, her gray hair tied back in a practical style that matched her no-nonsense approach to command. The hegemony advance force is larger than we expected, the Admiral announced, but they're moving in a predictable pattern, following the same tactics they've used against previous civilizations. Colonel Pete Wells, the Alliance's intelligence chief, pointed to markers on the display. They're targeting the most heavily defended systems first, just like they always do. They expect us to fight like every other species they've encountered. Study the enemy formations. But we're not going to fight like every other species. No, we're not, Zarothel agreed. Her skin showed the deep blue of tactical thinking. In Valerian military tradition, they have a concept called the Dance of Many Voices. It means coordinating different types of warriors to create harmony in battle. Admiral Bennett nodded. That's exactly what we're going to do, instead of meeting their advanced force head-on. We're going to spread our fleet across multiple systems and hit them with coordinated strikes they can't adapt to. Major Kate Sullivan brought up additional displays showing the planned battle formations. Each strike group will have ships from at least 3 different species, using weapons and tactics the hegemony has never seen in combination. Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. As one of the senior diplomatic officers, he would be coordinating communications between the various species commanders during the battle. The success of the entire strategy depended on keeping everyone working together. That evening, Jake and Zerothal stood alone in their private quarters. The formal military planning was finished, and tomorrow they would begin the journey to the outer systems where the first battles would be fought. "I need to tell you something," Zerothal said softly. Her skin was cycling through colors that Jake had learned meant she was feeling deep emotion. "What is it?" "The day I slapped you in the palace," she began. "I was not just following our laws. I was scared." Jake turned to face her fully. "Scared of what?" "Scared that I had fallen in love with someone who might be my enemy," she said. "The intelligence reports made me think that everything between us might be a lie. But I prayed that you would be able to prove your honor." Jake reached out and took her hands. Her crystalline skin was warm to the touch, and he could feel the slight vibrations that showed her emotional state. "The slap wasn't punishment," Jake said, understanding finally dawning. "It was a test. You were giving me the chance to show you who I really was." "Yes," Zerothal said. "In our culture, love means believing that your partner will rise to meet any challenge. I struck you because I had faith that you would find a way to prove yourself worthy of that faith." Jake pulled her close, marveling at how much he had learned about alien ways of expressing love. "And now? I know that you are exactly the man I hoped you were," she said, her skin shifting to pure gold. "You carried the burden of terrible knowledge to protect both our peoples. You risked your life to bring us together against a common enemy. You showed that humans can be trusted as true partners." They renewed their marriage vows that night, but this time it was not a political ceremony. King Vextar performed the ritual in their private quarters with only close friends as witnesses. The words were the same, but the meaning was completely different. As Jake spoke his vows, he realized that what had started as a diplomatic arrangement had become something far more important. His marriage to Zerothal represented everything that made the alliance possible: the willingness to trust across differences, the courage to be vulnerable with someone from another world, and the faith that love could bridge any gap. The next morning, the combined fleet began its journey to the outer systems. Jake and Zerothal stood together on the bridge of their flagship, watching the stars shift as they entered hyperspace. Their skin colors were synchronized in determination as they faced the unknown. Behind them, the greatest fleet ever assembled by organic species followed their lead. Ahead of them lay a war that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. But Jake felt ready for whatever came next. He had learned that sometimes what looks like betrayal is actually the deepest form of trust. Sometimes a slap is really an embrace, and sometimes the greatest love stories begin with misunderstanding and grow into something that can save the universe. The war against the hegemony would be long and difficult, but humanity would not fight it alone. They had allies now, partners who trusted them enough to risk everything for a shared future. And at the center of it all was a marriage that had proven that love really could conquer the space between worlds.